Okay, so I work over at my friend's house. We work from home. She's my supervisor, so I'm in training, so I'm working with her. We have a friend that lives right next door to her. She was notified that there was a loose animal right in front of her fence line, and so she gave us a call and asked, hey, can you go over and make sure that this animal's not mine? So we went over and we looked. The animal was not hers. So we decided to go around and knock on a couple doors of people nearby. We live in a very spread out area. People have neighbors, but the neighbors are a good distance apart from each other. So we went, where we thought would be a decent distance from where we found the donkey at. And went and knocked on some neighbors' doors and said, "Hey, are you missing an animal? You know, we have a donkey on the loose out here. We're just trying to find the owners." The people that we went and asked, everyone said that they weren't missing anything. So we had gone back. I went and grabbed a couple lead ropes, grabbed a halter to see if we could get up close to it and try and catch it. And donkeys will be donkeys. He did not want to be caught. He was smart. As soon as he saw me walk up with a lead rope and a halter, he turned around and he walked away. And so at that point, my friend decided to call the sheriff's department just to notify them, hey, there's a loose animal. We just want to make you aware of the situation. They sent a deputy out. The deputy came out and was extremely helpful. He didn't seem like he had a whole lot of experience with horses specifically, so he was just kind of doing what he thought he could do, and I'm, standing next to him, trying to help him. I grabbed my horse out of her pasture to see if maybe the donkey wanted to follow us around. Maybe he would get closer to me with me having my horse right there. He seemed kind of curious, kind of interested. We also had a bucket of feed with us to see if maybe that would entice him to come a little bit closer. Then maybe we could wrap a rope around his neck and catch him. We weren't able to do so. I got probably 2 or 3 feet away from the donkey with, my arm outstretched, not close enough to get anything around his head. The deputy that came out contacted their livestock officer, which is a civilian who is contracted through the sheriff's department in our county. He has been contracted specifically for livestock problems. So his job is to come out and capture and figure out what to do with either nuisance livestock or livestock that have escaped or anything else that has to do with that area. Our animal control does not respond to livestock situations, which is why they have that as a contracted position. When he came out, he spoke with the deputy. He did not introduce himself to me, so I had no idea who he was when he showed up. The deputy ended up leaving, didn't say anything to me when he left. The livestock officer kind of seemed a little odd. He showed up in a truck. He did not have a trailer with him. He did not have any other assistants with him. And not at any single time did I see a lead rope or a halter or any sort of means to try and catch the loose donkey. A lot of people know the pressure and release technique. It's a very common technique for horse training and equine training. And he was using this technique, but he was using it while he was driving around in his truck. So he was chasing the animal around in his vehicle. At that point, I was on my horse, just once again trying to get the donkey to follow me and see if I could get any closer to it, because at this point, I'm not on the ground. Maybe he's more comfortable with me actually being, on my horse. We had no idea if he was handled. We didn't know anything about him. The person in the truck ended up pushing the donkey away from the fence line that he was next to and pushed him into the road. This road does tend to be a little busy in the mornings and the afternoons. It's one of the main roads back where we were at. And so my concern was just trying to push the donkey back into the fence line where we found him to make sure that he was well away from the road to ensure his safety and the people who are driving down the road, to make sure that they're not going to hit an animal. And he chased the donkey, I want to say just around a quarter of a mile down the road. I was able to kind of get it to follow me back to the road. From there, he got in front of me, the donkey, so I pushed him back towards where I found him the very first time. I was able to get him back onto that person's property. I was able to push him all the way down their driveway where he was enclosed in an area where there were fences on 3 sides, and I was blocking in the 4th side so that he would not be able to get around me. At this point, he was calm. He was looking at us. His ears were up. He was curious. The livestock officer grabbed a bucket with some grain from somebody's stall that they had there. He was able to get close to the donkey. It took a couple minutes, but once again, he was doing pressure and release. He was able to get the donkey to be comfortable with him. He allowed the donkey to come up to him and get to know him, just, kind of smell him, walk around him a little bit. He had grain in his hand, and the donkey ate the grain out of his hand. At that point, I had a halter with me, so I offered that for him to use to try and catch the donkey with, and he told me that no, he did not want to try and touch the donkey because he wasn't aware of how it would react. But my problem with that was he had just been sitting there in very close contact with the donkey, feeding the donkey by hand. There was no aggression shown. You could tell that the animal was well cared for. He was in very healthy condition. His feet had been recently done. His coat was shiny. The neighbors, when they found him earlier that day, they said that the donkey had walked right up to them and he was very friendly. Once he turned down my halter, he looked at me and he said, "You are not going to see what I'm about to do, or you are not going to want to see what I'm about to do. You need to leave the property." And I had this feeling in my gut, and I said, "No, I'm not leaving the property. I'm not comfortable with that." And he looked at me and he was like, "If you don't want to leave, that's up to you." He's like, "I'd prefer if you left." And then he kind of left it at that. He said, "I need to go get permission for what I'm going to do next." And he walked away and he sat in his truck for a couple minutes. During that time, I had kind of figured out what he was going to do. And so I pulled out my phone and I tried to make a couple phone calls to find someone to come out and help me. Someone with a trailer who could at least put it in the trailer and keep it in there until we could find who the owners were. I was not able to get a hold of anybody at that time because I only had 5 or 10 minutes to make these phone calls. He came out of his truck. He came out with his firearm, and the donkey was standing in between some trees, grazing, making no moves to come running at us, making no moves to run away from us. He stood in the grass. He was probably, I want to say, 100 to 200 feet away from the donkey. He aimed at the donkey. He shot. He was aiming for the heart. He ended up hitting the donkey in the shoulder, and that did not kill the donkey. It reared up. It was flipping over. It landed on its withers multiple times. It tried running around. It could not, obviously, it was severely injured and in an immense amount of pain. This went on for about a minute to a minute and a half before he fired a second shot. I am not aware of where the second shot went. I know it hit the donkey. I'm not aware of where it hit the donkey. But that second shot did kill the donkey. After which it did go down. It did not move after that last shot. At that point, my horse had done her job, and so I went to take all her tack off and put her back in her field and let her do her thing. And by the time I got back over to where the donkey was shot, it was about 10 minutes between me leaving and coming back. When I got back, there was no donkey, there was no truck, and the livestock officer was gone. And that was when my friend and I made a phone call to the sheriff's office to try and get clarification as to who gave him permission to shoot and kill the donkey. The explanation they gave us was that the livestock officer and the deputy on scene thought that that was the best course of action for the animal at that time. There was no deputy on scene when the animal was shot. And so the past couple days, I've been working with law enforcement, I've been working with animal control to try and figure out the details of, what happened during the time that I was not there. Me being the only witness, this is also a situation where it's my word against his. And so they are trying to get every single little detail down to the point, to see, what can we do and why did this happen? So the donkey was known by the family as Jack or Grumpy, was what they had called him. They'd only owned him for about a month. He was very young. I want to say 2 to 3. He was fully intact, and he was a gorgeous animal, and it was a tragic ending that I wish would not have happened.